Fall is upon us, and with fall in the United States comes football. What many parents of high school students are unaware of is the special and at times avoidable risk that their children are exposed to. And I'm not talking about broken bones or cuts or bruises. The special risk is concussion, a trauma-induced alteration in mental status often accompanied by confusion, amnesia, and rarely loss of consciousness after a blow to the head. You may believe your teenage football player has never had one, but you may be wrong. In fact, one study of more than 1,500 high school varsity players in Wisconsin revealed that 47% of the players who have had concussions never revealed them to coaches or parents. Why? Well, the reasons varied. About a third of the players felt that the incident wasn't serious enough to report. About 40% didn't want to leave the game. And about 20% didn't want to let their teammates down. What these kids didn't know, however, is that these seemingly insignificant events can lead to serious disability and even death. In fact, in the past 10 years, at least 50 high school students in more than 20 states have suffered death or serious head injuries during football games. Now, that may not sound like a lot, with some 12 million American teenagers currently suited up, but of course, if it's your kid, it's an enormous number. The first thing to be aware of is that the problem is seriously underreported. If you ask athletic trainers how common concussion is, they'll say it affects about 5% of team players. If you ask the players themselves anonymously if they've had a concussion, about 15% will say yes during the course of any given season. But if you take out the word concussion and instead ask if they've experienced some of the myriad of symptoms like headache, dizziness, feeling dazed and confused, trouble balancing, nausea and vomiting that together define concussion following a blow to the head, 50% in any given season will admit to one, and 35% will admit to two. Each year, about 128 out of every 100,000 U.S. citizens suffer concussions, making this injury extraordinarily common. Most are the result of sports or bicycle accidents. When you suffer a concussion, the force of the blow to the head can cause the brain to impact the inside of the skull. Studies over the past century have revealed that with that impact, the cortex, or the major portion of the brain, which is fixed below by the brainstem, rotates from back to front. The force of that impact and the rapid deceleration can bruise the tissue and also disturb the transmission and functioning of nerve cells in the midbrain. These rotational forces are felt to be responsible for the confusion, the dizziness, and sometimes the brief loss of consciousness that can occur with a concussion. Amnesia for actions that occurred shortly before and shortly after the event is also common, with the cause for this unknown. The sensation of being dazed or starstruck after an impact, but without loss of consciousness, is generally viewed as the mildest form of concussion. The presence of an experienced on-duty sports-trained physician at high school football games is less common than the more visible ambulance that we often see on the sidelines. Only 42% of high schools have a certified athletic trainer on staff. Robert Salas, who's president of the American College of Sports Medicine, has this to say, quotes, "It's crazy. High schools hire a zillion coaches before they wonder about hiring a trainer. If you hire a head football coach, the next hire should be an athletic trainer," close quotes. Even with experienced personnel on the sidelines, there remains no full consensus on the evaluation and recommendations for return to play for high school students. Most believe that evaluation and care must be individualized, considering the age, the sport, the site and type and duration and severity of the injury, prior history of injury, the results of the diagnostic tests, and the response to exercise after recovery from an injury. In general, mild, transient confusion that clears within 15 minutes of injury with testing is less significant, especially as a first occurrence compared to, for example, injuries where symptoms don't clear after 15 minutes and certainly injuries where there's a loss of consciousness. Testing for milder injuries include the use of wordless repetitors, recollection of game events, normal finger-to-nose tests, and gait, and checking for normal neurologic signs. In the more severe injuries, more formal neurologic exam or brain imaging may be required to rule out the rare possibility of brain bleeding. So what can you, as a parent of a high school contact sport player, do? Well, first, question your child about the symptoms of concussion to see whether he or she has experienced a concussion in the past. Second, find out if your program has a certified athletic trainer and qualified medical personnel on the sidelines. Third, speak to the coach on his policy on concussions, including how they evaluate players on the sidelines, who gets referred to a doctor or a hospital, and how they decide who can play again and when. Just asking these questions may increase the safety for your kids and for others. And finally, check out the websites of the American College of Sports Medicine and the website of the National Athletic Trainers Association. They're filled with great information. For Health Commentary, I'm Mike McGee.